Hello, dear friends. There comes a moment quiet and unnoticed when the world grows softer, yet heavier. The birthdays pass, the candles grow too many to count, and suddenly you're 80. And after 80, something changes. It's not just the body that slows or the hands that tremble. It's the way time speaks to you. The silence becomes louder, the memories brighter and more fragile, and the truths become harder to ignore, yet no one really talks about them. No one tells you how friendships quietly vanish, how the mirror no longer shows the person you feel inside, or how it feels to be surrounded by family, yet feel forgotten. This isn't about fear. This isn't about giving up. This is about honesty, about naming the things so many elders carry quietly in their hearts. In this video, we're going to talk about 8 bitter truths that often come with life after 80 truths that are rarely spoken, yet deeply real, not to dwell on sadness, but to honor the journey. Because sometimes speaking the truth is the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and for each other. Let's begin. Number 1. People start talking to you like you're a fragile antique vase. Let's be honest. Turning 80 doesn't mean you suddenly transform into porcelain. And yet, have you noticed how people begin speaking to you with that soft, syrupy tone? Like you might shatter if they use normal volume or sarcasm. Oh, look who's up and walking today. Isn't that wonderful? You smile politely, but inside you're thinking, I've been walking since 1943. Margaret, there's something strangely hilarious and mildly insulting about the way people treat you after 80. You cough once, and someone's already Googling retirement homes. You forget one word, and they're whispering about dementia. You accidentally put your cereal in the fridge and the milk in the cupboard, and suddenly you're on a watch list. But the truth is, most of us after 80 are sharper than we're given credit for. We've survived wars, heartbreaks, raising children, losing friends, losing keys, bad knees, and several decades of strange fashion trends. We're not fragile. We're seasoned. Still, the world has a way of forgetting that. People start replacing real conversations with weather updates and gentle questions like, have you eaten today? As if we might wither without supervision. To be fair, sometimes we do forget, but only on Mondays, or is it Thursdays? Here's the truth. Growing older doesn't mean becoming less you. It means becoming more and more stories, more perspective, more sighs, more laughs at things younger people just don't get yet. So when someone leans in and says, you're doing so well for your age, feel free to smile and say, thanks, darling. So are you for someone so young and confused? Life after 80 may come with creaky joints and slower mornings. But don't let anyone treat you like you've expired. You're not an antique. You're a limited edition, still standing, still laughing, and still fully capable of making a sarcastic remark at the dinner table. Number 2. The invitations stop coming, but the memories never leave. There's a strange kind of silence that creeps in after 80. Not the peaceful kind you enjoy with a cup of tea, but the kind that comes from an empty calendar. Suddenly, the invitations slow down. No more birthday barbecues, late-night phone calls, or spontaneous visits from friends who used to pop in just because at first you might tell yourself, they're just busy. And they are busy working, raising kids, running errands, scrolling endlessly on phones they can't seem to put down. But as weeks turn into months, and months feel like quiet chapters with no visitors, it starts to sink in. The world is moving faster than it used to, and not everyone waits for the ones walking a little slower. You start noticing how many friends have already left the table. You remember their laughs, their favorite jokes, the way they roll their eyes when someone mentioned politics. Those memories become your guests now. They sit with you in the mornings. When the light hits the window just right, they join you during long afternoons, whispering stories that no one else remembers. It's not bitterness, it's a soft ache. You don't want pity. You just want to feel included, to be asked, would you like to come? Even if your answer is no. But here's the thing. While invitations might stop coming, your memories don't need an appointment. They're loyal. They're yours. And even though they make your heart ache sometimes, they also remind you that you lived, really lived. So when the world forgets to invite you, don't be afraid to throw your own party, even if it's just tea, a biscuit, and a silent toast to the people who once made you laugh until you cried. And if someone says, you probably don't want to come, do you? Look them in the eye, raise an eyebrow and say, darling, I've survived disco, Thatcher, and polyester suits. Of course I want to come. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to subscribe and join our community where we celebrate life's later chapters with heart, humor, and hope. Number 3, your body becomes a full-time job and you're the only employee. Ah yes, the body, that once loyal companion that could run, jump, dance all night, and carry shopping bags without complaining, now it creaks like an old wooden chair whenever you stand up. Your knees sound like they're popping popcorn, and your back files a formal complaint every time you bend down to pick up a sock. After 80, managing your body becomes a full-time position. There are pills to take, blue ones, pink ones, tiny ones that look like breadcrumbs, and somehow they all have to be taken before food, after food, or with exactly half a glass of water while standing on your left foot at sunrise. Then there are the medical appointments. Oh, the joy. Your diary is no longer filled with family visits or exciting trips. It's a parade of specialists, cardiologists, podiatrists, audiologists, rheumatologists, basically every ologist under the sun. You walk into the clinic and they say, you again? And you say, yes, it's our weekly date, isn't it? But here's the secret. Despite all the aches, the medications, and the days where it feels like you're made of glass and rust, you're still here. And that's no small thing. Some days you wake up and feel like your body's held together by duct tape and determination, but you rise anyway. You shuffle, you stretch, you sigh, and maybe you grumble, but you're still moving forward, even if it's just from the bed to the kettle. And let's be honest, there's humor in it too. Like when you go into a room and forget why. So you leave, and halfway back down the hall you remember, only to forget again by the time you return. Your body may not be a Ferrari anymore. It's more like an old bicycle, a bit rusty, wobbly on hills, but still capable of taking you where you need to go, as long as you're patient and maybe talk to it kindly on the way. So give yourself some credit. You're managing a complex, unpredictable, vintage machine, and the best part, you've got the wisdom and the wit to laugh through every unexpected squeak and snap. Number 4, you become invisible until you make a scene. Here's something no one warns you about. After 80, you start to disappear, not in the magical Harry Potter invisibility cloak kind of way, but in the slow, quiet way that stings. People walk past you in shops, waiters look through you, young people bump into you and say nothing, as if your presence no longer registers on their radar. At first you think, maybe I'm just imagining it. Then one day you stand in. A queue, purse in hand, ready to pay for your milk and biscuits. And 3 people cut right in front of you like you're part of the furniture. And suddenly it hits you. To the fast-moving world, you become background scenery. It's one of those truths that's both heartbreaking and hilarious. Because the irony is, you weren't always invisible. You were once the spark in the room. The one people listened to, argued with, even chased after. And now, you're just Nan with the nice coat, or that elderly gentleman who feeds the birds. But here's the delicious twist. Being invisible has its perks. You can eavesdrop on conversations, skip boring events with the excuse of being too tired. And sometimes people hand you extra cake just because they think you've had a rough day. You probably have, but the cake helps. And if ever you get tired of being ignored, raise your voice a little, say something bold, dance a little in the supermarket aisle when your favorite song comes on, or tell a cheeky joke loud enough that the teenager nearby blushes. Suddenly, you're not invisible anymore. You're unforgettable. Because you see, wisdom isn't quiet. It just chooses its moments. And those of us over 80, we've earned our moments. We've earned the right to be heard, to be seen, and if necessary, to throw a good dramatic sigh in public for effect. So the next time someone looks past you, smile and whisper, "Careful, dear. Some of us may be invisible, but we still have excellent aim with a handbag." Number 5. Saying goodbye becomes a regular part of life. No, one really prepares you for how often you'll have to say goodbye after 80. It starts slowly, an old friend here, a neighbor there. But before long, the Christmas card list gets shorter, the phone rings less often, and familiar faces begin to blur into memory. It's not just the big goodbyes either. It's the quiet, unspoken ones, the favorite cafe that closes down, the park bench that's been replaced, the doctor who used to know your name retiring without warning. It's like the world is gently reminding you that everything changes, whether you're ready or not. And let's be honest, grief doesn't get easier with age. It just gets heavier in smaller ways. Sometimes it arrives in the middle of buttering your toast. When you suddenly remember how your friend Jane used to laugh until she wheezed. Sometimes it knocks during a rerun of an old movie you once watched with someone who isn't here anymore. But here's the strange, beautiful thing. With every goodbye, your heart finds new corners to hold the people you've loved. They don't vanish. They settle inside you soft, permanent, and surprisingly alive. You hear their voices in your head, you see them in your dreams, you speak to them when no one's watching, and sometimes when they are. Yes, it hurts. Of course it does. But it also proves that you lived a life full of connection. You made friends worth mourning. You built bonds strong enough to leave echoes. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest success of all. So don't be ashamed of the days when your chest feels heavy with names and faces. Instead, pour a little tea, look out the window, and say, "I remember you. And I still carry you with me." Because we're never truly alone, not with a lifetime of love stitched into the seams of our soul. Number 6. Your world shrinks, but your inner life expands. Once upon a time, your days were filled with places to be, people to see, things to do. The world felt huge rushing buses, crowded markets, family gatherings, even arguments over whose turn it was to do the washing up. But somewhere along the way, after 80, the world begins to shrink. You notice it in little ways. You don't go upstairs as often. You choose the quiet supermarket instead of the busy one. You stop traveling far, and before long, your daily radius fits neatly inside a few streets. A favorite chair, a well-worn route to the kitchen. At first, it can feel like a loss, as though the horizon has come closer. You wonder if you're being left behind, but then something curious happens. While your outer world gets smaller, your inner world begins to bloom. You start to notice more the way sunlight warms the rim of your teacup, how your cat always blinks at you slowly like she knows something, how a familiar tune can still move you to tears even after 60 years. You begin to appreciate things with a kind of richness younger people simply don't have time for. There's magic in that slow noticing. In the stillness, you meet yourself in deeper ways. You replay memories, question old beliefs, rediscover jokes you haven't told in decades, and chuckle out loud alone in the kitchen. And no, you don't need the big wide world to feel alive. Sometimes, aliveness is in the way you spread jam on toast, or in that satisfying moment when you finally find your glasses on top of your head. So yes, your world might shrink, but your mind, your spirit, your ability to love, to laugh, to reflect, they expand with every quiet moment you embrace. As the poet Rumi once said, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." And maybe, just maybe, this quieter life is not a reduction, but a refinement. Number 7, you have to start relying on others, and that's not easy. One of the most stubborn truths about getting older is this: no matter how independent you've been your whole life, how many meals you've cooked, shelves you built, or socks you found mysteriously in the fridge, you eventually find yourself needing a bit of help. At first, it starts small. A jar lid that refuses to open, a light bulb that's just too high, or a prescription that needs picking up. Then suddenly, people start saying things like, "Let me do that for you," or "Don't worry, you just sit down." And while their intentions are sweet, something inside you bristles. Because you remember who you were, the fixer, the caretaker, the one who always knew where the batteries were kept. Now, asking for help feels a bit like surrender, like admitting defeat, but it's not. It's actually one of the bravest things you can do. There's a quiet kind of dignity in saying, "Yes, I could use a hand." It takes strength to trust others. And more than that, it invites connection. You give someone the gift of being needed, of being useful. You let them love you in action. Be still. There are days when you feel like a burden, when pride sits heavy in your throat, and you want to scream, "I can do it myself." Even if you know your knees disagree. But here's the truth. You are not a burden. You are a blessing with stories to share and wisdom that no instruction manual can teach. So when someone offers you an arm to steady you, take it BB. When they ring your shopping inside or call to check in, let them. You've spent a lifetime showing up for others. This is just your turn to let love in. And in the end, relying on others isn't weakness. It's community. It's family. It's human. And sometimes the greatest strength is not in standing alone, but in knowing when it's time to lean. Number 8, you realize time is both generous and unforgiving. Reaching 80 is a kind of miracle. You survived storms, said tearful goodbyes, fallen in and out of love, worked hard, worried endlessly, and laughed until you cried. You've lived fully, and yet time, dear old time, sits beside you like an old friend who sometimes forgets your birthday. Because here's the truth. After 80, time feels different. Days move slower, but years blur together. You begin to measure life not in deadlines or paychecks, but in moments, the smile of a grandchild, the first sip of tea on a chilly morning, the feeling of sun on your knees by the window. You become keenly aware that there is less ahead than behind, and some days, that feels cruel. Like there's still so much to say, to feel, to remember properly. You begin to ask questions. Out loud, did I do enough? Did I love enough? Did I leave a mark? But listen closely. If you made someone laugh, comforted someone in pain, forgiven when it was hard, or simply sat quietly beside someone who needed company, then yes, you've left your mark. You've lived a rich and meaningful life. Time may not always be kind to our joints or memory, but it's incredibly generous with second chances. It lets us mend old wounds, say what matters, and find peace in ordinary days even now. So instead of fearing time, dance with it, gently, clumsily, silly if you must. Write letters, share memories, hug tighter, say thank you more often. And remember, at 80 and beyond, every moment is not just a leftover, it's a jewel. Because the truth no one tells you is this: the clock may tick on, but you are timeless. So there we have it, 8 quiet truths that often go unspoken, whispered only in the hearts of those who have walked far enough to feel them. Growing older, especially beyond 80, isn't just about numbers or birthdays. It's about learning to hold both the beauty and the ache. It's about realizing that love doesn't fade, even when names do. That laughter still bubbles up, even when the knees protest. And that dignity isn't in doing everything alone, but in letting others walk beside us. If you're over 80, or if someone you love is know this, you are not forgotten, you are deeply needed, and your story matters more than ever. There's a quiet kind of wisdom in you that no search engine, no textbook, no AI could ever replace. You are living, breathing history wrapped in love, laced with resilience, and still capable of joy. Now, if this video resonated with you, if it reminded you of someone you love, or even reminded you of yourself, I'd be so grateful if you could like this video to let others know it matters. Comment below, What truth hit home for you the most? I'd love to read your story. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, gentle, real, and full of heart. Share it with someone you think needs to hear these words today. A friend, a parent, a grandparent, or someone feeling a little alone. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for living this long and still showing up with courage. Stay warm, stay kind, and remember, you're not walking this path alone.